My name is Neil Colley. I'm a worldwide principal go-to-market leader for QuickSight, and so been with Amazon and QuickSight for going on 6 years, and it's been a tremendous journey. Doug?
It's nice to meet everybody. I'm Doug Berquist. I'm a manager of solution architects for QuickSight.
Hi everyone, my name is Bashi Mehta. I'm a QuickSight solution architect.
All right. So by show of hands, how many folks in the room have interacted or used QuickSight before? Oh yeah, love this. This is awesome. All right, so from a QuickSight perspective, let me just catch you up a little bit for those who haven't heard of QuickSight before. It's a unified BI tool suited for all your analytical needs. One of the things that we got right, when we first created QuickSight was the serverless component. So you're going to have that high performance and auto scaling built right in. And the thing that we're going to obviously cover today and be excited about is the augmented analytics from a generative AI perspective. And then, one of the things that we also did at the beginning was, a lower cost, right? And so that pay-as-you-go model. And so what we mean by unify from a BI perspective. So, by doing our research, we found that, most companies have anywhere from 4 to 7 different business tools, right? Or BI tools. They're using certain tools for reporting, and that has a diverse population. They have a subset of tools for dashboarding, and that has a diverse population as well. If you're creating intelligent revenue generating applications, you may be using a different types of insight tool to be embedded into that application. And then for search or natural language query, you could be doing a myriad of things, right? And so what that does is it creates silos from a BI perspective. There's different UI, so you're going to have those different learning curves. And then from a commercial terms perspective, it's a lot of standalone contracts and commitments from that perspective as well. And so when you think about QuickSight, it's all baked in. Modern dashboard reporting, comparable to just about any tool that you see in the market. Also reporting, so for legacy style reporting, PDF reporting, we had some phenomenal sessions early in the week on that. We also have baked in natural language query and ML insights that date back a couple years ago. And then what we're excited to talk about today is the generative capabilities, all baked into one performance-based UI tool with lower cost in mind. Now, the thing I'm excited about that I've experienced over the last 5 years is the pace of innovation. So I started with QuickSight very early, and since then we've had 600 plus features. In the last 2 years, we've been super busy, creating a lot of innovation as well, right? So definitely started out with that cloud-native hyperscale foundation. Of course, we've moved on to analytics for everyone, anytime and anywhere. As part of our embedding strategy. And now we moved on and incorporated things like generative BI as well. So I'll pass it over to you, Doug, for the next section.
Thanks, Neil. So when we think about features in QuickSight, we think about 4 areas of investment. So we want to democratize data for business users. We want faster and richer insights for analysts. Can you build a dashboard and get it out to your users quickly and more efficiently? We focus on governance. Are the right users seeing the right data at the right time? And then APIs for everything, right? QuickSight was born out of scale, so APIs are really important for that. Can you manage the deployment at scale, at will? So we're going to start with business users. So we've added quite a few visual experiences to make it easier for users to digest data. And so we focused on new mapping capabilities. We've added a few new visuals. And we've made enhancements to pivots and tables. So let's start with maps. We've added new base maps, both imagery as well as street maps. We've changed the ways that you can digest the data, so marker clustering, heat maps, and we've added global geocoding. We've also added quite a few new visuals. So text boxes, which is something people have been asking for quite a while. We're very excited that they're out, so hello world. We've also added radar charts. We've enhanced our scatter plots, as well as we have small multiples, which is a great way to view data where we duplicate visuals across that values of a specific dimension. And we've enhanced our KPIs, so now you can add period over period change, as well as a line chart at the bottom to track either daily, weekly, monthly data. So within pivots, obviously pivots and tables are some of the most used visualizations within dashboards. So we want to make it easier for our users to interact with them and consume that data. So we've added data bars. We've changed layout options to grab a hierarchy layout, which allows you to hide and collapse columns. We've also added contextual row subtotals. This is really useful if you have a big pivot and you're looking at subtotals, you're not really sure where that aligns to. It now actually has the value of that column in there, so you know exactly the total you're looking at. And within tables, too, we have freeze and unfreeze columns and different ways to set default widths so that you know that your end users are looking at the right data that you want to publish to them. OK, so Generative BI is the most exciting piece that we've come out with this year. I was really excited to talk about it. It's really neat. I'm excited about it. But Neil stole it from me, so I do have to hand this to him right now. I'm going to take it back when he's done, though.
All right. Thanks, man. Really, really appreciate that. So, finally we're here from a generative BI perspective. I can tell you, since Swami's keynote at New York City Summit, we showed a lot of good functionality, but there was always more to come. And there'll still be more to come. But I'm excited about what we're about to show here from a demo perspective, as well as kind of double-clicking into generative BI. So we've made tremendous strides in our enhancements around AI-powered authoring experience, which enables business analysts to build faster. Whether that's calcs, whether that's refining certain visualizations, you can do that now with Amazon QuickSight from a Q perspective. Now, AI-powered insights on demand, right? So simplifying the extraction of those insights for business users. And we'll double-click into what that means. And then AI-assisted data storytelling, right? The ability to tell a data-driven story and do it with up-to-date. And when I get to that part, this is going to be a really cool area to show as well. Now, when you think about the AI dashboard experience, right, using that natural language to build and refine those dashboards, being able to just simply text or write text to create advanced calcs, and then refining those visuals. And then, of course, AI answers to questions on demand, right? Having those executive summaries where you can get those insights, and then easy, powerful Q&A experience for non-technical users, whether that's multi-visuals or suggested questions that's been verified that you should want to know about and ask, or even vague question support as well. Now, AI-assisted data storytelling is the ability to generate those stories on demand and create that refined content. And of course, the data is always going to be up to date, right? We've all created dashboards, reports for leadership, maybe your directs, and sometimes that, by the time you gather all that data and snip it into something like PowerPoint, it becomes very stale, right? And so I think we have a different take on how you can go about that. Now let's just double click here. Let's start out with a demo. So this demo is going to be related to real estate data here. So we'll just let that build for a second. So the first thing that we're going to show is the ability in plain language to write a custom calc by just texting it. So there's no complex language that you have to learn, like when you're utilizing certain tools or other tools. And then I can remember when QuickSight didn't have if-else statements in it. So the ability for a non-technical user to write this type of just natural language and have it generate a syntax is mind-boggling in terms of the innovation just in a couple years, right? So really cool functionality. And then the demo user is just going to add this to the dashboard so they're able to take advantage of that later. And then the other component of this is being able to just type what you want to build and what you want to see, right? So in this case, you're going to see a line chart, right? We're going to add that to the analysis. And then as that builds for a second, another thing that we're going to be able to do is refine that visualization by simply, typing out change to stacked column chart and add market, right? So it's going to simply do that. Now you can just kind of adjust this visualization's size for a second, and then voila, it's there, right? So incredible functionality. And QuickSight's always been about democratizing data, so easily to publish this out, including the executive summary, as well as the data storytelling as well. So let's just let this build for a second. The second thing that we're going to talk about is AI-powered insights on demand. And Doug, thank you for creating this component because this is awesome right here. So we didn't talk about this at the New York City Summit, and I can tell you for non-NDA customers, I was bursting at the seams to really talk about this feature set, right? So we've all seen dashboards where you got 20, 30 different visualizations in it. There was a lot of research that went into it, but you just want to get to the meat, to the value of what's actually being stated, right? And so one of the things you can do with the Q functionality is also ask questions, right? So it's part of that Q&A experience. And then in this case, it's going to generate a set of visuals, 3 visuals, that you're going to then be able to look and see if that question in Q&A part has been verified for accuracy. And then you can simply pin that to the dashboard for later usage when it comes time to do some storytelling, right? So we'll just let this build. The other thing that you're going to be able to do is filter, sort, based on what it created for you, so you can quickly refine that. And I can tell you, we've actually slowed this demo down. When Doug created it, it was just flying right rapid pace, so it's pretty awesome. Now let's get to what I'm really excited about is the AI-assisted data storytelling, right? Like again, we've all created PowerPoints, the data becomes stale, or maybe we have data and we've derived it from a couple different sources, and we want to quickly be able to tell a story, right? So in this case, we've pinned a couple of those visualizations that we want to drive the data story that we're telling it to do. And then once we've gathered that and added, we simply tell it, build me a story about mortgages in California. And the AI is going to be a little bit verbose when it comes up with the title, which is kind of comical. But in a sense, it's really cool functionality. So in a matter of seconds, it's building out a whole strategy around this, whether it's a blog or if you wanted to do PowerPoint, you could. And so it's generated it. Navigating California's escalating mortgage landscape, right? So very verbose in that. But then you can refine that from a theming perspective. You can, type a different, do a different tone of the text if you want to be more authoritative or less authoritative, things of that nature, right? And then also, just the ability to add the different theming that you want to add to it. So it's amazing. Like this was like when we first saw this like 7 months ago or whatever, it was just a phenomenal functionality. We really couldn't believe it. And again, that's part of a subset of our generative AI capabilities, powered by Bedrock. Thank you. Over to you, Doug.
Give me this back.
Yeah.
Thanks, Neil. All right, let's talk about analysts. So if you might have noticed, we've changed the authoring experience. It came out, I think, a week or 2 ago. So we've made it easier for authors to build visualizations more quickly and efficiently. We've also added customizations that you can add to individual dashboards. So with the new file menu, it's easier to navigate to the specific functionality you're looking to use while you're building the dashboards itself. And if you don't know where it is, there's the universal search on the top right there. You can just type in what you're trying to do, and it will jump directly to that. The 3-pane layout is probably similar to what you're used to. We've moved a few things around so that you're not digging in for functionality, trying to find what you're looking for. It's a much easier flow from adding the data, adjusting the visualization, and maybe changing the properties of that visualization. We've also added custom time zones and custom week starts per dashboard, so that when you publish out a dashboard to users in a specific time zone, they no longer have to worry about, is this UTC, is this East Coast, whatever it may be, so they know exactly what they're looking for. And the same thing with week start. If you start with Sunday, if you start with Monday, they'll know exactly what they're viewing. We've also added unified field level coloring. So what this is, it gives a level of consistency across the entire dashboard. You can see here, APJ in that pie chart is the same in the column, and it will be the same throughout the entire dashboard. So you're no longer confused when colors are different between metrics or within categories within a visualization. It brings a nice consistency throughout. Last year at reInvent, we announced paginated reporting, as Neil mentioned, the ability to burst reports out on PDF or CSV schedules. This year, we've added some functionality. So we now also support Excel reports. So that's going to take tables and pivots and keep the formatting that you've added to those. So whether it's grouped cells, totals, subtotals, all the width and headers, as well as we've added an API so that you can create these reports on demand. So you no longer have to be forced to use the scheduling that's in QuickSight. If you want to use this maybe at the end of an ETL or something like that, you can trigger it whenever you need. We've also enhanced some data preparation. So within Spice, we've increased the query performance in a few different ways. We've added common sub-expression elimination, essentially creating better queries on the fly, so they're faster response times from Spice data sets. We've also improved the ingestion. With parallel ingestion, with large data sets, we will actually drop the time by up to 75% for refresh schedules. We've also added the float data type for more precision. We've added 2 new APIs to manage the refresh schedule as well as incremental refresh configuration, right? When that incremental refresh happens, as well as the configuration on the column. So admins can start to do this at scale, right? That's the point of using QuickSight. We can do everything at scale. We've also added data connectors for Starburst, Trino, and Google BigQuery. We've added dataset parameters. So this is the ability to use a parameter from the dashboard and have it flow through back to the actual live query dataset. This helps for complex use cases as well as faster query results, because you can put a where clause within subqueries as you need to and populate that from choices on the dashboard itself. We've also integrated Amazon SageMaker Canvas. So SageMaker Canvas is the no-code, low-code machine learning platform. You can now take data sets from QuickSight, bring them into Canvas, create a predictive model, and then use that predictive model back in QuickSight for your data sets. I'm actually going to go through a quick demo. Again, we're trying to show a lot of features in 1 hour, so I may go through quickly. So if you have any questions at the end, please come up and talk to me. So here we have a dashboard of customers, or telephone customers. And so maybe we want to predict the churn, right? We have this data. We want to create an ML model to predict who is actually going to churn within my customer base. So the scenario here would be I am a QuickSight author. I've been shared this dashboard, and I then now want to make a prediction. So within the dashboard, I can find my data set I want to use. I can save this as an analysis, so I can start to make changes to the dashboard. And I can start to clean up the data, right? There may be data in there I don't want to use for my predictive model, so I can filter, I can change fields, I can bring fields in and out, basically prepare the data to send to SageMaker. You can see it's taking out some dummy data there. Once I'm ready, I'll go hit the option here. I'll build a predictive model. It will take that export of that table and send it to SageMaker so that I can then start the model building process. Once it's ready, I can launch SageMaker. I can select that data set. I can start to build a model. You can see you can create predictive analysis, image analysis, or maybe even text analysis. You can do sentiment analysis or something like that. I'm going to do a prediction. When I'm ready, I can pick the field I want to predict. Here, there's a churn, a historical churn field. I can preview the model, which will run one of the models so it can give me a preview of how accurate it's going to be, and as well as which fields are going to be most impactful on my model. And you can see I can go through and take a look. So there might be fields I don't want to include. I can go on the left-hand side and start to take those out. Maybe identifiers of that customer, maybe region doesn't really matter for my predictive model. I can start to remove those. And once I'm ready, I can run the build. And this will generally take anywhere from 45 minutes to a few hours. It will run through a few different models to figure out which one is going to be the most accurate for my prediction and choose that one for me. You can see the accuracy is going to be at 97%. I can, again, see how impactful each individual field is, as well as I can actually see which model it used, right? It can show me all the models that it checked and show me the percentages. Now, normally, I would use the predict in SageMaker Canvas and do batch predictions and export this data to CSV. Or I would deploy this as an endpoint in SageMaker Studio. But with this new integration, I can send it back to QuickSight, and I can use this model within a data set. I'll download the schema here. And once I'm ready, I'll jump back into QuickSight. So now you can see my churn data set, which is an Athena data set, so my production data set that continually gets refreshed. I will add a predictive field, and I'll select my model that I just built. I'll add my schema file, so the data set matches the fields that are coming from the schema itself. You'll see that they match here. And you'll see that the name was matched for the churn field. So for the new field that I'm adding on to my data set, I'll name this churn prediction. And when I'm ready, I'll refresh the data set. And so now every time that refreshes, that new field will get updated with the Canvas model. I can start to use that field in visuals. So maybe I want to break out the prediction of customers and the number of customers who will churn in a specific time frame, as well as, most importantly, how much money I might lose with that churn model. And I can publish this out to my users, and they now have this field ready for their use. All right, I'm going to pass it on to Bashi for governance.
Thank you. So while both my co-presenters may believe they snagged the shiny and exciting pieces when it comes to the updates of QuickSight, little do they know that we're about to rule QuickSight, and that is with administration and governance. And so with that, this year we've been pretty busy. Granted, we've been saying this quite a lot throughout this entire week, but I think we've made a lot of really big strides when it comes to the governance and managing permissions of your assets. And so this ranges from, for example, introducing shared folders or shared restricted folders to being able to do nested conditions, and then as well as being able to find different ways of authorizing connections to QuickSight. And so we're going to dive into each of these pieces next. And so, as some of you guys are already familiar with, personal folders and shared folders existing in QuickSight, so being able to add that hierarchical structure when it comes to your asset management. But now we're able to do shared restricted folders. So how is this different? It's a new type of shared folder. It allows you to restrict assets from being removed. And so for an example, if I'm a product owner for this inventory management dashboard, and I want to give one of my teammates the ability to make different edits or changes, I'm able to give them the contributor role. And what this contributor role does is that it allows that team member to be able to make different modifications. So for example, maybe add a new visual without having to share and move the analysis outside of the folder. Fine-grained access granularity. This has been something a part of QuickSight for quite a bit of time, as you've seen with multi-tenant structures, our row level and column level security. But now we've introduced two new updates. And so the first one is run as IAM for Amazon S3 and Amazon Athena. And so for this, what it allows us to do is that we can provide an individual user access to a certain S3 or Athena data source. And from there, they're able to be able to access this information. It's able to override the current permissions that are existing. And it just makes it really easy in order to give that permission just to that single user versus having to provide it company-wide or just to everybody for that entire S3 bucket or for the entire Athena data source. And so from there, we've also introduced supporting complex row-level security when it comes to embedded dashboards. So when you use row-level security tags, now you can have AND conditions as well as OR conditions. So AND conditions always existed, but we've now allowed for you to be able to nest these pieces together. And so it makes it just a lot more easier when it comes to those multi-tenant structures as well as for your anonymous embedding. So if, for an example, I have multiple roles within of being able to access certain information. And so it just makes it a lot more easier to handle those very complex security data scenarios and being able to just have those multi-dimensional views. And so this is my favorite announcement of when it came to one of the features. I think it just makes everything a lot more seamless, and that's specifically being able to configure QuickSight access with IAM Identity Center. And so all QuickSight users, so new users, can now subscribe to QuickSight using IAM Identity Center to enable their users to log in to their existing identity sources that they have. And this doesn't require additional single sign-on capability or for having to do those configurations in QuickSight. Another feature that got introduced that is a part of IAM Identity Center is trusted identity propagation. So I'm sure some of you may have heard about this yesterday if you went to the session with Camille and Ramon. But to give a little bit of a summary of this, what this allows you to do is be able to pass a user's identity from direct query Redshift into QuickSight. And so this just makes that seamless end-to-end access for no need to do re-authentication, and then simplifies that row-level security when it comes to that management. And so you're able to, for example, if you have certain row level and column level security enabled in Redshift, that is able to translate all the way over into QuickSight. And so just removes duplication efforts that you've typically had to do in the past, and it makes for that consistent authentication experience. This is something that's also for AWS Lake Formation into Redshift Spectrum and Direct Query Redshift into QuickSight, and will soon be introduced for some other data sources. Now, last year, we had the large announcement about Amazon Data Zone. And so this is a new data management service that makes it a lot more faster and easier when it comes to customers being able to catalog or discover and share and be able to just govern data stored. And so today, through private preview, you're able to do that integration with QuickSight. So being able to see the type of data that maybe different people within your organization have access to and to subscribe to it. So we're going to go through a demo of this to walk through each of those pieces and see how this integration works together. So starting off, as you can see in this architecture diagram, we have two producers. So we have our sales, and then we have our product development team. And so both of these teams have a data lake that they catalog data into their data zone. From there, we have our consumer within operations, where they're able to take this data and visualize it into QuickSight. So the first step of what we're going to do is being able to publish that data into data zone. Sorry, taking a minute. So yeah, we're logging in. So as you can see, we are a product development team right now, owner, and we're looking at our data. So I'm looking at my product data, and so you can see the glossary terms I have below, being able to identify it. So I want to share this across my AWS organization. So I'm going to go ahead and publish this asset. So by clicking on it, I'm able to publish my asset and make this available across different organizations. So now, within my AWS organization. Now, from the contributor standpoint, we're able to search for this catalog and request access to it. So now I'm logged in as my operations. And so here, what I'm able to do is I'm just going to go ahead and look for my asset. So yeah, I'm going to click on, and now I can see I have one asset available right now. So let's click on it, see what we have. So we have sales data. But the thing is, I need some detailed information about product information regarding those sales. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search into my data warehouse. And so typing in warehouse, and I see there's product data available. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that and then request access. And so I'm just going to be like, please give me approval. I need access to this. And so I'm going to go and ask for that subscription. And so now we're going to go back again as a producer. And here we have to go ahead and approve this access. And so how we go about that is we're going to go into our product development again, and we can see that we have a notification, and it's asking us to basically approve this. And so I'm going to go ahead and all caps be like, I approve. And then here I'm going to click to approve. And now we've made this available for our consumer. And so here you can see this is the structure of now. QuickSight looks a little different now for our consumer. So for our operations team, we can see we have these restricted folders, if you guys remember me mentioning this earlier. And in it, we have our production development. So we have our sales data and our product data. And then in here, we're now able to create different visualizations, so our different analysis and dashboards. So next, we're going to go into building out these pieces. And so here, so we're going to go quickly check, seeing if this is available from our operations standpoint. So we can see there's now two data sources. And so we see we have our product data, but it's still loading. We're still waiting on it. So we're just going to redirect to our environment. And when we go into this environment, we're going to just go directly segue into QuickSight. So we're logging into QuickSight. And we're able to now see here that we're able to access our shared folders. And so as we go into, we're going to click into our sales data. And within our sales data, I'm going to go ahead and make just check out the data that we have within our data set. So looking at the title that we have. And I'm going to go back and check if we've confirmed that our product data is ready, which looks like it's ready. So now we can go ahead and create a join across our two data sources so that I can show more insights related to my data. And so here I'm going to go ahead and add a new data set. Data source. And then here we can see our data zone connection, being able to access it. And so I'm going to go ahead and select our product table. And here, create a join. So I need to make sure to define my key IDs. And so I'm going to go ahead and select product, and then select product again for that commonality, and then do a right join. From here now, I can go ahead and save and publish this data. And I've gone ahead before and built out this analysis that's already available. So it's our sales report data. So you can see all detailed information about sales reports. But we're going to dive into our sales report with our product data. And so this is a combination of both of our different data sources that we have available. So you can see we have our map, we have this visual. And so it just does a great job of showing how you can provide those permissions for your different users and be able to govern that access. And so with that, so with being able to, with reInvent last year, we launched the expansion of different APIs. And so this was being able to treat your BI dashboards as code. And so that helps accelerate your DevOps strategies. And so being able to enable import and export packages of these different asset sets into a bundle. And so what we've now done is we've been able to automate this process. And so that is with our new Amazon Event Bridge. And so with Amazon Event Bridge, developers can respond automatically to events in QuickSight, such as a new dashboard creation or making a different update, and you're able to send emails or trigger different types of functionality. So whatever works best of what you need to kind of enable to happen, it's possible with Event Bridge. Another update is within our cost allocation tags. And so for our AWS cost allocation dashboards, we now allow you to view author licenses as well as your cost center information, where you're able to see your reader session charges of what's occurring at the user perspective. And you can even do it to the multi-tenant structure with having that, having your data now enhanced and being able to give that complete view. And so this makes it just a lot more easier to understand different monetization strategies that you can do, as well as picking the right pricing model based off of your usage patterns. And so speaking of visualizing those different cost and usage data, we're very excited to announce that now we have a native integration with AWS cost and usage data with QuickSight. And so now you can launch these dashboards directly from your AWS billing and cost management console. And so what this looks like is you can see the export page up there. And what you're able to do is just click it and be able to deploy these pre-built templates of being able to within minutes. And so what this does, it allows you to no longer have to worry about kind of tracking that data flow, as well as you can share these dashboards now with other users who may not have access to your AWS console. And then you can even safely embed this into your own website. And so being able to increase different, allow your users to see the increased cost, or as well as being able to keep accountability across your organization. And so we also no longer need to manage, so automation is always great, as we've seen multiple different scenarios, and one of those is going to be we no longer need to track how much spice data we're purchasing. And so a lot of times you're running into these ingestion failures, and it's because you don't have enough spice capacity, and so now you can just flip a toggle and automatically increase that capacity for yourself. All right, now we're on our last, but definitely not our least pillar. And so this is being able to provide APIs for everything for our developers. And so whenever we think about APIs, of course, we are thinking about the embedding experience and our embedding use cases that we have. And so with that, we've done so much. This is probably the greatest area where we've done so much development in, to the point where we actually we added a name called 2.0, because so much changes with our JavaScript library when it comes to the integration as well as functionality. And so one of those is, for an example, being able to increase different productivity, so having that support for TypeScript. We're also helping with just that building out that analytics experience quickly. And we've done this through, for example, being able to provide preloaders, as well as having error handling configurations of being able to give infos and warnings, being able to manage your redo and undo buttons, being able to do a lot of different rewrites when it comes to for example, like status type checkings, being able to enhance runtimes, and many more, especially when it comes to our different call patterns. Something that's really great is also being able to have that state persistence and bookmarks within the embedded experience. So now you're able to, for an example, if you as a user, you have certain views that you want to have to stay persisted, that's possible with the embedding experience. And so you no longer need to, so if you have this preference and you're presenting and wanting to show pieces, you don't have to rely on having to always add on those filters on the fly while you're presenting. Instead, you can just have those already in persist. And so, and lastly on this slide is we have being able to synchronize, and so having our runtime theming and filtering. And so what this does is just makes it a lot more easier for on the fly being able to make different changes. So for an example, when it comes to themes, you can quickly within a button be able to turn it into dark mode or light mode. You're also able to just have different APIs to trigger this functionality, as well as for filtration, having it within your home application, and so being able to make those changes on your dashboard within your host application. We've taken it even further, so did even further enhancements when it comes to your embedded experience. So we've done deeper integrations in the sense of being able to do custom action callbacks. And so with custom action callbacks, you're able to build custom workflows, be able to have business logic so that your users can, in an instance, be able to take action from the application. So for example, if a developer is registering a data point callback on a specific slice of a pie chart. And so when a user maybe clicks on that, it's able to pass information about that data point. So whether you want it to, for example, be able to like send an email, or you want it to just capture and process that information and be able to update that status within your database. So if it's related to, for an example, if you click on this, it adds, when you click on it, you're adding another value to it. And so you're increasing that pie chart now. Or being able to track those usage patterns within your users. So you're able to do that with those callback actions. And for last year, we launched the QuickSight community. So how many people are members of our QuickSight community? Oh, that's so little. Okay, we have to change that. More of you need to join, because we've now launched the QuickSight Arena. And so with this, it makes it, we have this provided this embedded instance where it allows you right within our community be able to publish different dashboards. So show off your skills that you've done with building all these different dashboards that you have. Also, if you have questions that you run into, like the point of the community is to help you with being able to ask different questions, being able to learn different how-to videos, as well as just gaining more knowledge on QuickSight. And so with that, you're able to put up a sample dashboard and be able to log the issue that you have. And from there, be able to post it into the community. And you can have people be able to see that sample data and be able to understand it a bit better, versus when you feel like this calculation's not working, they're like, I don't really understand your data. You're able to instead provide an instance where it's available, and it makes it so much easier for being able to receive that help. And so I'm about to go through quite a few QR codes now, so get your phones ready, because there's quite a few. And so for one of those, if you're curious exploring more about generative BI pieces that Neil covered, which was the most exciting, of course, that we've experienced this week, I recommend scanning this QR code. This will have all of our latest updates and all the exciting news related to it. Then afterwards, if you want to check out Demo Central, so for an example, Doug was presenting all these richer visualizations that we've added within this last year. And so if you want to see some amazing dashboards that our team has built out that incorporate some of those visualizations, I highly recommend clicking on our, scanning this QR code and going to our Demo Central website, and you'll see some of those there. For signing up for our QuickSight community, so this is probably not the last QR code you're going to see all of today, but at least it's the last one in this slide deck. And so I think this one's definitely the most important, especially which I saw how little of hands that were up that have signed up for the QuickSight community. So here is a great place to interact with other customers. You can hear about upcoming events, different, if like QuickSight's in town and we're doing like a low-code, no-code event, which is, we've done a few of those this past year. And so, and being able to hear, like we have these learning series. And so just a lot of new updates. And I really recommend going ahead and signing up to be a part of this community where you can ask questions, be able to learn together, and get the latest updates on QuickSight. And now, our QuickSight community, so another piece of being able to learn within our community is our developer corner. And so we just released this year, at the second half of this year, and it offers a centralized access of being able to learn about the QuickSight embedding analytics capability. So a lot of the pieces that I covered, a lot of the pieces that I covered today, you could be able to look at different examples of those, be able to learn about different videos. I think all the blog posts related to it you can access. And so it's just a really helpful place of just knowing where to get started when you want to embed your applications. And then lastly, I want to take a moment to celebrate our top 10 QuickSight community experts of 2023. They've gone above and beyond in order to help with a lot of answering questions. And I know we have one community member here. I don't know if he's here right now in the room, but we're really grateful for all the work that you've done, especially just answering questions, creating content, and just sharing your expertise with others. And just really excited to see the rest of you join along as well and become experts yourselves. And so with that, here's a last couple of things. So we have 2 remaining events from the QuickSight perspective. So we have a lightning talk on Generative BI. I think it starts immediately after this, so just start running. And then as for our next part, we have a repeated workshop, so being able to build dashboards and reports, exploring Generative BI yourself. And so that's our last 2 sessions that we have. And then lastly, thank you so much, everyone, for joining for our session. It's been a great year for QuickSight, and I'm really excited to see where we chart to next.